Okay guys, so for our next topic, we will now discuss about the influence lines. So after reading this lesson, the student will be able to first, understand the moving load effect in simpler term. Number 2, study various definitions of influence line. And for number 3, introduce to simple procedures for construction of influence lines. Okay, so ano ba yung influence lines? So, influence lines for statically determinate structures. So again, yung statically determinate structures natin, so ito was discussed doon sa mga naunang topic. So again, when we say statically determinate, it is the type of structure from where the equilibrium equation is enough to solve for the unknowns, or it is solvable by equilibrium equations. Okay. So, influence lines have important application for the design of structures that resist large live loads. So, from the previous topic, yung about frames, di ba meron tayong several methods doon, which is the portal method, cantilever method, etc. So, those are involved with dead load only. So, when we say live load, ito is gumagalaw siya. Okay? So usually, influence lines can be applied in the design of bridges, yung mga cranes mo, ayan, so yung mga gumagalaw, ano. So in this lesson, we will discuss how to draw the influence line for a statically determinate structure. So under this topic, i-discuss natin yung paggawa ng influence line sa beam and trusses. And at the same time, yung application niya when it comes to moving load. So for example, may papagtawidin ka na kotse, truck, 13-wheeler na ganun. So, paano ba natin gagamitin yun using the influence line? Paano natin masosolve yung mga forces at a certain point or a certain member in a truss, ano? So, ang concept kasi nitong influence line is gumagawa ka ng diagram kung saan i-determine mo kung ano yung magiging effect ng load na to kapag siya is nasa point na, example, from point A, ano yung mararamdaman ni member na to kapag yung load mo is nasa point A. And then, paano naman kapag nasa point B? So, ano yung mararamdaman ng member na to or nung point or nung section na to kapag nandito siya sa point B? Ganun. So, mas ma-appreciate nyo yan kapag nag-solve tayo na example. But, for the meantime, basahin muna natin yung mga terms, yung discussion about this influence line. So, the theory is applied to structures subjected to a distributed load or a series of concentrated load. Ayun nga. So, it's either distributed load ka or a uniformly concentrated or a series of concentrated forces. And specific application to floor girders and bridges, trusses are given. The determination of the absolute maximum live shear and moment in a member is discussed at the end of the lesson. So, pwede mo rin pala ma-compute dito yung magiging shear and moment in a member on a certain point. Okay? So, very flexible pala yung application ni influence lines. Okay. Influence lines. In the previous lessons, we developed techniques for analyzing the forces in structural members due to dead or fixed loads. So yung mga naunang part, so this is all about the dead or the fixed load. It is shown that the shear and moment diagram represent the most descriptive methods for displaying the variation of these loads in a member. If a structure is subjected to a live or moving load, however, the variation of the shear and bending moment in the member is best described using the influence line. So kapag moving load na, when it comes to shear and bending moment, so the most best method of describing a member is using the influence line. So an influence line represents the variation of either the reaction. So mamaya papakita ko sa inyo kung ano ba yung application ni influence line. So, mas maunawaan nyo siya if i-consider mo yung reaction at a certain support. So, ano ba yung magiging reaction if the load is at this point, at this point, at this point, etc. So, reaction, shear, moment, at the same time, deflection at a specific point in a member as a concentrated force moves over the member. Once this line is constructed, one can tell at a glance where the moving load should be placed on the structure so that it creates the greatest influence at the specified point. So, ang hinahanap natin kasi dito is the maximum value. Kasi yung maximum value na yun yung gagamitin mo kapag magdi-design ka ng isang member or kung anong member or anong size yung gagamitin mo for a specific member. So, based on that maximum value, again, yun yung gagawin nating reference para i-design yung member na yun. Furthermore, the magnitude of the associated reaction, the shear, moment, or deflection at the point can be calculated from the ordinates of the influence line diagram. So most of the time kasi ang ginagawa natin dito is ang ina-apply natin is 1 unit load. From that 1 unit load, nag-establish tayo ng equations and then tsaka natin isasalpak yung mga values na given for a specific problem. Okay? So ang ano lang naman dito is gagawa ka lang ng equations and then from that equation, then 1 unit load, i-graph mo or gagawa ka ng influence diagram. For this reason, influence lines plays an important part in the design of bridges. So ito nga yung sinabi ko kanina. So crane, conveyor, or other structure where the loads move across their span o kapag live load yung pinag-usapan natin. Okay, so this time, what are the use of the influence line? So an influence line is a useful tool in stress analysis in 2 ways. Number 1, it serves as criterion in determining the maximum stress. That is, it is a guide for determining what portion of the structure should be loaded in order to cause the maximum effect of the part under consideration. Number 2, it simplifies the computation. So, it is a procedure for analysis. Either of the following 2 procedures can be used to construct the influence line at a specific point P in a member for any function. So, either reaction yan, shear, or moment yung pinapa-compute. So, for both of these procedure, we will choose the moving force to have a dimensionless magnitude of unity. Okay, so next ano tayo? So guys, this is yung nasa module na binigay namin sa inyo, and that module is just a summary of the references o yung mga books na diniscuss natin during the course orientation. So, procedure for analysis. So, what are the procedure? Either of the following 2 procedure can be used to construct the influence line at a specific point P in a member for any function. Again, reaction, shear, or moment. For both of this procedure, we will choose the moving force to have a dimensionless magnitude of unity. So, the first one is the tabulate values. Okay, so first, you need to place a unit load at a various location, X. So maglalagay ka ng 1 unit load at a certain distance x along the member, and at each location, so use the statics to determine the value of the function at the specified point. Okay, so in the influence line for a vertical force, reaction at a point on a beam is to be constructed. Consider the reaction to be positive at the point when it acts upward on the beam. Okay, so sinasabi dyan that the reaction should be positive at a certain point when it acts upward on the beam. And if a shear or moment influence line is to be drawn for a point, take the shear or moment at the point as positive according to the sign convention used for drawing shear and moment diagram. Okay guys, so ito, maaaring merong ang positive or negative value. Again, when it is positive, that is considered to be in tension, and kapag negative, the member will have a compression. Okay? Next, all statically determinate beams will have influence line that consists of straight line segments. So guys, ito is magkaiba sa shear and moment diagram ha. So yung influence line, walang kinalaman doon sa shear and moment diagram. So laging straight segment lang or straight line yung establish natin na diagram. Kahit shear or moment of a member using the influence line, again, straight line lang yung mangyayari. After some practice, one should be able to minimize computations and locate the unit load only at points representing the endpoints of each line segment. And to avoid errors, it is recommended that one first construct a table listing unit load at X versus the corresponding value of the function calculated at a specific point. That is reaction R, shear V, or moment M. Once the load has been placed at various points along the span of the member, the tabulated values can be plotted and the influence line segments constructed. Okay, so sinasabi lang dito guys is maganda is gumawa ka muna ng table. Table consisting of the distance X and the values na maproproduce ito at the given distance X. Okay? So once nakagawa ka ng table na yan, from there, tsaka mo i-graph or i-drawing yung iyong influence line. Okay, so the second method is the influence line equations. So the influence line can also be constructed by placing the unit load at a variable position X on the member and then computing the value of R, V, or M, or the reaction, the shear, and the moment at the points as a function of X. In this manner, the equation of the various line segments composing the influence lines can be determined and platted. Okay, so yung ituturo natin method is yung second method lang na para mas madali, and I think it is the most convenient way of making an influence diagram. Okay, so influence line for statically determinate beams. So the basic approach to drawing influence lines for a statically determinate beam is to apply equilibrium equation. Okay? So ayan, pasok pa rin si statics, pasok yung equilibrium equation. Based on the procedure of taking the appropriate free body as the unit load travels along the beam span, it is often convenient to construct the reaction influence lines first and then reduce the shear and moment influences. Okay, so sabi dito, unahin mo daw hanapin yung influence line for the reaction. Then tsaka mo kunin yung influence line for the shear and moment influences. Okay guys, so para mas maunawaan nyo ito, magsosolve tayo ng mga problem for the influence line for a statically determinate beams.